So I forgot. I had an alarm clock set, so my video cut short on this iPhone. I guess that's an idea for an update they should install in the future. If an alarm goes off, you should have the option. It shouldn't like shut off your video if you want to continue. So I noticed it shuts it off, and then of course, as normal on the iPhone, you have to tap the button to turn the alarm off. But yeah, it automatically stopped the video. But what I was talking about was a previous stress test I had and current one. I failed my first stress test right away. Like, was way too dizzy to barely get started. And then the second one, and this was 2.5 years ago. And then the second one, they got me. I had better endurance than I had now, and I'll explain the relation in a second. Back then, I was really out of shape, but I still had enough endurance to. During the stress test, I have to get you to a target heart rate, and in order to get me to the target heart rate, I was actually having to sprint, and because of course the better shape you're in, the better like distance runner you are, the lower your heart rate will be, so you can like be relaxed and maintain during long hard exercise instead of your body working so hard. Anyways, I failed that second stress test because they told me that I hadn't reached my target heart rate yet, but I just had to quit, and I think I came fairly close, but they not only did I not reach my target heart rate, but they had wanted to observe me after the target anyways. And I remember back in Carbondale, I was just ready to collapse and like black out. So I was like so faint, so I was used to running on treadmill, so I knew what to do. Instead of falling off the back or pressing like the emergency stop button, I just decided to step on the side platforms, and then the nurses were like all like upset in a way, like, or I don't know, disappointed that I was so close but I didn't make it. And but back then I had a immediate echocardiogram. Like, they like pretty much grabbed a hold of you and like dragged you over to this table, and then gave you the echocardiogram while your heart's still pumping really fast. And I remember they found like some minor arrhythmias back then, but recent stress tests, I'm so out of shape that like the highest, I don't know, well, it wasn't necessarily the highest, well, not necessarily the highest speed, but the highest speed I was able to get up to, and on a good incline, it's sped up enough to where I started running like naturally, because I felt like I was gonna fly off the treadmill if I kept trying to power walk it. But the nurse, or whatever designation she was, that was running my test, told me to go back to walking, and then I wasn't grabbing onto the railing. I was trying to actually walk like without assistance to get proper results. But when she told me to go back to walking, I had no choice but to grab onto the railings, or else I was gonna fly off the back for sure. And it was like such a hard workout for me, not only because of like how I get near faint, and on top of that I have long-term side effects from being on benzodiazepines for so long, and I'm switched over to the TaperMed diazepam, which is a lot, which is different in ways than clonazepam was, because it makes you like much more sleepy, and I believe it's a moments like this. I wish I had the internet so I could just look it up really quick. I believe it's a hypnotic, but I don't think Klonopin was. So that's why you get so sleepy. And it has muscle relaxant properties that Klonopin didn't have. So on top of feeling near faint, you feel near faint and from the medication anyways. You just it just really lessens your anxiety attacks, but you still, there's a whole long list of long-term effects, because your body builds up tolerance and it becomes less and less effective, and then it does other things, changes the chemistry of your brain. But back to the stress test, I amazingly passed, in the sense that I both reached my target heart rate, and like I was saying, I'm so out of shape that I was able to reach it speed walking, and instead of having to sprint. And then I was able to go for a little while beyond my target heart rate. And during the stress test, I had I haven't been having any palpitations at all recently, but during the test, when my heart was put under so much pressure, because like every now and then I'll try and go for like a run and like build up my endurance, but I have learned my lesson about pushing myself too hard. It's like if I push myself like at all, I'd say like 85% like race pace, can't get close to 100. Seems like I always end up getting extremely dizzy, and then I'm always like debating about calling an ambulance, because I always feel like I'm just gonna like drop dead after a workout, literally, which is stupid, because I used to run all the time, and even when I go for periods without running for a while, if I took up running again, the first few runs would be challenging, and you would just feel out of shape, your lungs would burn, your muscles would hurt, maybe get some side stitches, but you'd feel worn out after a workout, but you wouldn't feel so dizzy, feel like you were going to black out. So yeah, I was having a crazy, like, sporadic, like, real quick palpitations, and then be like boom, 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 or like boom. Sure, you know what palpitations are, but so that was creepy. And I had a couple last night laying here on the couch for some reason. Oh yeah, I went to I usually have trouble standing for a long time, but I didn't really stand that long, but I went to Circleville High School home football game last night, and before the game they were 6-1 and ranked first in like their region, which is maybe like 15 teams, but I always thought they were a small Division II team, but in football spreads out a lot more divisions, so they were Division III, and they played a 2-5 Bloom Carroll team, and Circleville was like heavy favorite, and should have been just another win for them. They've been beating teams pretty badly, and their only loss of the season was a 1-point loss. It was something, they lost like 35-34 to like a team similar to them as far as like their record is Hamilton Township. But I hadn't been to a single football game, and I went to one of their scrimmages against Waverly before the season, and it might as well have been two-hand touch because like nobody played hard on defense at all. And but I noticed they had this quarterback. He was like so tiny. This guy David Barrows, and I noticed even though during the scrimmage, and despite people weren't playing like their hardest on defense, and the beginning of the season, so not everyone was in shape. On top of that, that he like had some like quickness to him, and he was a running quarterback more than a throwing quarterback, which I think are fun to watch. Just because they're like so much trickery, you never know when they're gonna like surprise you like with a pass, because you're always worried about the run. And it's I don't know, it's just more fun. It just always made more sense, especially when I used to play like video games. I would always put fastest guy at quarterback and then just have him I would do like Hail Mary and spread everyone out to spread out the defense, and then just take off running to either sideline, and then just always and then average like 30 yards per run. But so like I saw during that scrimmage, I saw glimpses of like his ability, and then of course wasn't going to any games, just kept reading about it in the paper, and this guy kept having like 150, 200 yards, and then he had like 300 yard plus rushing one time, and I was like, holy cow, and I realized he was good when I saw him that one time, but geez. So figured I'd go to this game and check him out. And they just high school games are like really go by really fast, so like a couple mistakes or bad calls from refs can like destroy your game, like even if you're better than the other team. And I remember Circleville, they didn't score on their first possession, and then Bloom Carroll, it was like their first or second possession. They got away with like three. The refs missed 3 holding calls in a row, and Bloom Carroll had like 2 really good running backs, and despite only being 2-5, they were like doing good against Circleville. And since they missed the holding calls, of course, they ended up getting yardage that they shouldn't have, and it just kind of like snowballed after that. Like one final thing that like put Circleville away was they dropped a kickoff, and then Bloom Carroll got it, and it was like 2 minutes before halftime, and then Bloom Carroll was up 21-0, and then Circleville did what they had typically done and scored pretty quickly on some big gains, and made it 7-21 going into halftime. And so they at least kept it close. Then they got it back within 10 with 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and they had one drive where they absolutely had to score, and then they ended up giving it back to Bloom Carroll, and then there was like 2.5 minutes left, and they were the punter put them all the way back down towards the end zone, and like the very first play they ran the quarterback tried to take off running as usual, and he got tackled in the end zone, so it was safety and game over from there. So, yep, Circleville, like I was saying, was first in their region, which was very rare for them. I think someone might have said it was like the first. I think the paper might have said it was the first time in like 40 years. And but they have 2 losses. So I don't know. I guess I don't really want to blabber on about Circleville football since I don't follow them. But they, just side note, it's only 2 losses, so they at least still have playoff hopes. Oh yeah, back to, alright, I'm gonna, next video I'll talk a little bit more about what happened during the stress test and after.